Hello everybody and welcome back for another episode of Indie Impressions. My name is Nick and today we're going to be checking out something called In C# by developer Spotline. This is a little bit of a tough one to describe, but as you might know from watching the show, if you have watched the show for a while, you'll know every now and then I like to depart from the usual gameplay stuff and go into a little bit of a bizarre world of sandboxy toys and physics systems and musical experimental things, and this is very much that. I'm going to read a little description of what the developer describes this as, and then I'm going to demonstrate to you how, although it sounds very haughty and ambitious, it's actually quite accurate. So In C# is an autogeneous musical sandbox based on genetic algorithms. We can play melodies with our keyboard, and the notes will answer, communicate with each other, and progressively transform your music into something new. So, what that means is these little boxes that were shown here in the center of the screen, these are actually our nodes, and the way that we can interact with them is we can actually use from Q over to P across the top of our keyboard to play individual notes, and those nodes will actually learn those notes, permutate with them, and create different versions of the melody that you just created and send them out to the other nodes, where they'll then be reprocessed and then sent back or sent to other nodes or whatever you desire them to be. So then there's a whole bunch of varieties of different ways you can take it from there, but let's just make some music with it and have a bit of a good time, and hopefully the appearance of how this all works will start to make sense fairly quickly. So we're going to select the biggest node here. First we're going to zoom in actually a little bit just so we get the best perspective. Select this node, you'll see a radial circle will appear around it. We can actually start tapping in some notes if we choose, so I'm going to go I-I-O-I-O-P. How's that sound? So I-I-O-I-O-P. And then we're going to lock that by hitting middle mouse over that. So it's going to take what I just made and keep repeating it and keep sending a signal to the other nodes that are within the range of that node. And each one of those is going to sort of resample and remix the little bits of that in every possible permutation, send it around to the other ones that are available, and keep going in sequence for like that forever. So if I wanted to, though, I could actually add another node next to it, and we could also hit C to change it into a different type of note. There's a triangle and also a circle, and each one of those sounds a little bit different. And eventually it'll transmit back to that one. You can create another note over here. Maybe start this one off with another melody of its own. U-U-Y-U-I. And then we'll lock it and see if we can transmit that to something else. And maybe this can go off on a different path here. So let's zoom out a little bit, give it a little bit of space. And I think it might need to be a little closer, actually. I don't think that one was actually transmitting properly. But the next step we can take this to is we can actually bring in rhythm mode by pressing M. And all of a sudden, it sounds like we've started to create a song, doesn't it? A little bit of a fragmented song, but there's some melody there nonetheless. And if we want to maybe take the tempo down just a little bit, we can start tapping on spacebar to quiet that down or slow it down just a little bit. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then just sort of let that process through. So if you want to, you can actually create a bunch of little linear paths separate from the main central point of your nodes to actually create some backing rhythms or melodies that could sort of, accent what you've got going on in the main area. You can also notice, if I zoom in, the volume and the panning will actually have to do with where your camera perspective is. So if we wanted to have a big complex bunch of rhythms happening, we could kind of zoom in and scope in just one particular area of it to try and make sense of it a little bit better. So let's make a few more nodes over here. Let's make this one into a triangle this time. And we'll make another within range. So hopefully this can kind of permutate in a few different directions going off over here. And let that kind of do its own domino thing. And then we'll go... Oh, it's actually already going through them. Well, look at that. Dynamically, I didn't even create anything yet. It just starts going off by itself. And since this one and this one are both locked, they're going to keep generating those rhythms forever, whereas the other ones could potentially fizzle out. As you can see, they're not going to be generating new rhythms from the far left corner or anything like that. It's just coming from those central points. And I'll demonstrate as we zoom in again. The panning and the volume, everything kind of softens and goes off to the side there when you zoom in a little bit more. So I've played around with a number of different kind of graphical musical interfaces in my time. I'm actually very, very invested in the concept of music in general. If I didn't go to school for art, I was actually planning on going to school for audio engineering. So things like this really, really appeal to me. It's sort of a beautiful confluence of art and music in the realm that I am most interested in, which is, you know, the realm of indie games and experimental little executables in one form or another. And I find that this is actually one of the best ones I think I've run into in a way, because this is very, very able to be branched off upon. I could see this becoming an incredibly easy and accessible way for people who have very little investment in the concept of how to form, you know, MIDI triggers and musical sequences and all of that kind of thing. They could just jump right into this and very quickly start to get the gratification of being able to create songs. And I'm just imagining, you know, layering multiple of these tracks on top of each other into a sequencer-like area, or just being able to export something like this as a file that you could then process in another format. This could be its own, you know, musical generative world, honestly. I think there's a lot of really huge potential here. Obviously, what I'm doing right now, too, is not really grasping the fullest potential of this. I could even be, I could just go over here and make a node and just kind of play along if I really wanted to. Or just make some backing pads if I want to, just as well. Just keep things kind of quietly flowing along. And just make sure there's always some sort of sound happening. In fact, I think I could just make a bunch and lock them separate from each other, and then they'll just play along in the background. You could actually use them to create chords that way as well. So if these sit right next to each other, I wonder if they'll actually activate each other. Not entirely sure. I'm sort of experimenting around with these two. You can also make them larger. I guess that just makes their volume a lot louder or something like that. Change scale editing. Oh, I forgot there's actually all of this too. So we can actually set what scale we're operating on. So we want to set it to a major. You can see all of a sudden the tone and the vibrance of this is completely changed. Or we could actually create our own custom defined scale, which could sound awful all of a sudden. Just wanted to let you listen to that just for a second here. Really interesting. This actually sounds quite lovely and vibrant. Let's put the scale editor away. There was one more. Oh, you could toggle memory. No, that's not it. There's another button that I found by accident that actually shows a whole bunch of information about what's being done with the musical processes as you're going along. All right, let's make this just a little closer to the other node and see if it starts swapping into the big square. There it goes. And then all of a sudden we've added a whole new element to the melody. And now it's triggering the two that I've set that are set in stone, which will then in turn set those back in the other direction, which will then invade the other parts of the melody, and they'll all sort of converge together as, you know, the waves of musical water crash together to make one ocean. I just kind of enjoy just letting this play because it actually sounds really nice. I didn't really try very hard to create this. I didn't really put a lot of strategy into where I was putting what I was putting, but it sort of just works its way out. It just sort of makes something beautiful out of whatever you seem to make. Unless you really edit the scales to sound awful for the most part, I think you're going to come up with something pretty nice sounding most of the time. So, I mean, I really don't have a single bad thing to say about in C# other than I just maybe wish there were a few more different options to do with what you can do with this information. If I could export whatever I create here, this loop, as some sort of file that I could then go and edit, I imagine this could be a start to something really amazing. Also, if you could import samples would be really fantastic as well, or if you had maybe a few more options for percussion, but you know, I'm asking too much, honestly. This is probably just designed to be a fun little experimental toy, and maybe is coming across a lot more professional to me because I see such potential in it, but if the developer only intended it to be what it is right now, there's zero harm in it being exactly that. So in that respect, my hat absolutely goes off to Spotlight for creating something wonderful and quite magical in a very easy and accessible way that I think really anybody with any interest in just making something cool could just jump right into and try. So I would love to see if you guys want to play around with in C#, make your own YouTube videos of it, make a song, and upload them, and just, you know, have a good time with it in general. I kind of wish there was a way I could just export this file, though. I really would love to be able to share some other songs and things, but I guess I could always record them. This is actually a very characteristic and distinct song that it's created here. the melody keeps triggering back and forth every so often with that do-do-do-do-do-do-do. It's like I'm part of like a KK Slider Animal Crossing thing going on here. I feel like this should be playing in a cafe or something while we talk to each other in some sort of other universe. I'm also imagining if this could integrate into the that game I played about a week ago that was like a procedural art gallery generator and also generated some music as well. Get this for the audio engine and this would just take off. Imagine triggering some bizarre samples every so often. You could really make some really unique and wonderful things out of that as well. Not that what's here isn't, but I'm just saying the potential is astronomical. Anyway, I guess we'll wrap things up at this point. Sorry, I've just been letting this run without modifying it much more, but I kind of like the equilibrium that I think this melody created. But I highly encourage you guys, go out and play with this, see what you can make, let me know what you think about it in the comments, and of course, as always, if you enjoyed the video, do leave a like on it, because it does help out a whole bunch. I will, again, always be back for another episode of Indie Impressions every single day, so if you enjoyed this episode, make sure you come on back for that, and if you enjoy the concept of finding out about a new game every day, consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't already, and I will see you all then. So thanks everybody for watching, and I hope you have a fantastic night. Talk to you all later.